Chapter 3. Guidance. Books. I've read several on the subject. Daylight. I had never seen the sun before, and it was fair to say that I still hadn't. But the power of its light filtered down through the thick, angry cloud cover, turning a sickly color, yet still brighter and warmer than the humming lights of Stable 2. The air itself looked somehow wrong in the light, off color. But everything was illuminated. I could see motes of dust and ash floating about the room. I wondered how healthy it was to be breathing it, and for the first time I really grasped the expanse of the outside. It made me want to hide underneath the window. While working up the nerve to step into the very, very big outdoors, I preoccupied myself with opening the locked chest I had discovered the night before. It took 2 of my bobby pins, but it was worth it. Inside was the most beautiful dress I'd ever seen. Such lines, such folds of fabric, and the colors, elegant and regal, yet the fabric was light, breezy, and did not sag. It was a dream. Sadly, a dream for another, taller pony. Joy and disappointment mixed in equal measure. But even if I could not wear it, at least not without some major tailoring, it was the prettiest and most cheerful thing I had seen since leaving the stable. Carefully folding it up, I slipped it into my saddlebags. Mindful of the sniper pony from the night before, I stood back behind the cover of an overturned table and used my magic to open the door. A tarnished bell hanging above tinkled cheerfully. Muted sunlight poured in. The sounds of outside flowed into the room, the twitter of birds, the faraway sloshing of the river. Fresher air pushed back the stale. Cautiously, I moved into the doorway and looked about. Post-apocalyptic Ponyville was a rotting skeleton of a once homey little town. Between collapsed buildings and burned homes, the streets were littered with rubble and refuse, and everywhere garish paints of depravity and grotesquerie. The graffiti was not limited to outside. The raiders had defaced the Carousel Boutique with an almost ecstatic fervor. I turned from the doorway, my gaze following the lines of profanity that curled up the walls towards the rafters, and shrank back, choking in revulsion at what the sunlight revealed above me. Dozens of dead and desiccated cats had been hung from the ceiling like decorations. I had slept directly beneath 3 of them. I took an involuntary step back, one hind hoof at the door. What was that? I turned and spied the half-buried orange disc in the ground just outside the door. A little red light was pulsing on it.
Close the door.
The voice came out of nowhere, tinny and mechanical, but somehow full of urgency. My heart lurched and I jumped back inside, slamming the door hard. The explosion just outside tore the door off its frame, hurling it and me back into the room. I crashed through a tattered vanity divider, the smoking door landing over me. I was more shocked than hurt as I slowly dragged myself out from underneath the door. My ears were ringing. A trap. No wonder the raider ponies hadn't invaded while I slept. They'd just left a present for me instead.
Hurry, there are more in the way.
I could barely make out the voice. My ears felt like they were stuffed with cotton candy. "Who are you?" I queried, but moved to throw my canteens over my neck while magically drawing out the combat shotgun. I had been dismayed to learn that it only had 1 shot left, but if a raider pony stepped to the door, I intended to make it count. An entirely different voice replied,
Come out, whoever you are."
The head of a raider pony slipped into the doorway, grinning maniacally with something in her teeth. It looked like a metal apple. She tossed her head and it flew into the room at me, but the stem stayed behind in her teeth. A memory flashed through my mind. I was a younger pony trotting to the stable schoolroom when an older pony stepped out of a doorway and heaved a water balloon at me. It had burst against my horn, soaking me and my homework. "Hey, don't look so bad, blank flanks. I was just trying to help you, in case your cutie mark was supposed to be a target." The older pony had laughed and hurried off to class, leaving me dripping and miserable in the hallway. Lesson learned. When some pony throws something at you, don't let it hit you. Don't let it even hit near you, because it might splash. The combat shotgun clattered to the floor as I focused my magic on the metal apple, catching it and hurling it back outside of the door. The grenade barely cleared the door frame when it exploded. Dust and splinters of wood flew at me, getting in my eyes. A tinkling erupted at my feet. Looking down, blinking the debris from my eye, I saw the little bell from over the door had landed and mangled at my hooves. My eyes hurt, and I kept blinking to clear them. Cautiously lifting the combat shotgun again, I edged towards the door. I could barely see the foreleg of the raider pony around the edge of the door frame, completely still. With a second thought, I levitated the table so that it formed a barricade over the lower half of the doorway and crawled up behind it. Quickly popping my head up, I looked to see if the raider pony was still conscious. The leg wasn't attached to the rest of the raider pony. It took me a moment to spot the rest of her torn body, mercifully dead. I dropped back under cover, feeling a strangeness pass over me. I had just killed some pony. Sneaking out of Ponyville had been harrowing. I realized early that I had been neglecting my eyes forward sparkle. Once I had brought up my EFS, it was far easier to determine where the raider ponies were and to avoid them. Despite actively looking for me, the raider ponies proved less than adept hunters. Using my magic to bang a mailbox lid down the street or break an empty bottle against a freestanding chimney several yards away proved sufficient distraction to get past them. I almost made it past the last house when the sniper pony started taking shots at me again. The closest shot actually grazed my flank, a slash of burning pain and flowing of blood. Fortunately, the wound looked far worse than it was, and even my meager medical skills were enough to stop the bleeding and bandage it. I crouched in a little gully, sheltered by trees, and fought to catch my breath. Somewhere in the distance, I heard music playing again. The rumble from my stomach was much louder, reminding me that I hadn't eaten in almost a day. I floated out one of the apples from my saddlebags while I uncorked one of my canteens. Of course, I had no more than taken a sip when my pip-buck threw a dancing red light on my EFS compass. Not coming from the raider town, but from up ahead, deeper into the hilly wood. Of course, something else was trying to get me, because the wasteland clearly hated me. I recorked the canteen and stood up, wincing at the flare of heat in my wounded flank. I lifted the combat shotgun, still with its single shot, and perked my ears to listen. My surroundings were quiet, even the music was gone. Then I started to make out a faint buzzing. I lifted the gun to eye level and focused down the top of the barrel, lining it with the warning mark of red on my EFS. At first I saw nothing, but then I spotted it, an ugly little flying creature, bloated and grotesque, hovering between the trees. It spotted me too and shot a spiny dart through the air at me. It missed me, mostly, getting tangled in my mane. I aimed, but hesitated. The damn thing was so small and could jerk about so erratically that I had almost no chance of hitting it. I didn't dare waste my only shot. So I did the next best thing. I dodged behind a tree and prepared to gallop. Another mark appeared on my EFS, followed by a zorching, crackling sound quite unlike anything I'd heard before. The red light winked out, leaving only the new one, which my pip-buck had divined as friendly.
I'm really sorry about what happened back in Ponyville, but that raider didn't give you any choice. She would have killed you.
It was that same mechanical, tinny voice that had shouted out the warning that surely saved my life earlier. With a mixture of relief and bewilderment, I watched the sprite bot fly up to my hiding place. Who are you? What are you was the question that wanted to escape my muzzle, but I suspected that it would be rude.
A friend.
I raised an eyebrow.
Okay. A passing acquaintance. But one that doesn't mean you any harm.
After a pregnant pause,
Call me Watcher.
I regarded the sprite bot critically. Watcher. Okay. I slipped out from behind the tree and started looking for where my apple had rolled when I dropped it. Not far away, near the flying creature had been, I spotted a glowing pile of pink ash. Did you do that?
Blood spreads. That's what you get when you mix paraspreads with taint. Can't stand them myself. I'm glad to help.
Finding my apple, I levitated it up. Thank you. And thank you for the warning about that thing in the ground.
Mine.
I blinked. Do you want my apple? The sprite bot laughed, which was very weird to hear since the artificial voice didn't have any inflection.
No, that's what it was called. The explosive in the ground. It's called a mine. It triggers when you step close.
Oh, I took a bite of the apple. That's a very stupid name for a weapon. The sprite bot laughed again. It was a little unnerving. Then, strangely, I found myself chuckling as well. I really thought you meant that my apple was yours. I'd share it with you if you wanted, although I don't know what you'd do with it since you can't really eat.
Huh?
For having no emotion in its voice, the Spritebot sure did do a good job of conveying confusion. You don't eat food because you're a robot and you don't have a mouth. A third time with the laughter, although this was more of a slight chuckle.
Oh, you mean the Spritebot?
Well, at least I wasn't the only one this conversation had managed to confuse, although I was confused now more than ever.
The Spritebot isn't actually me. I'm somewhere else. I just learned how to hack into these things to communicate and to look around.
I was beginning to get the picture. Then, that music...
Oh gosh, no, I turn that crap off the moment I hack into one of these. You have no idea how old that music gets.
As an afterthought, the hacker and the Spritebot added,
Yet.
I finished my apple. My stomach felt much better now, as did my spirits, thanks to finally having a civilized, if utterly bizarre, conversation.
Oh, my time's almost up. Look, there are a few things you're gonna need if you want to survive out here. A weapon, or at least a lot more ammo for the one you have, armored boarding, a bit of guidance, and, most importantly, you need to make some friends.
Armor, at least, shouldn't be too hard, although I've shuddered hard at the thought of putting on a dead pony's barding. Still, though, that grazing shot, I'd been outside for less than a full day, and already I'd come terrifyingly close to death. I could probably slip back around the bridge and strip it off the corpses there. A weapon? The idea of stripping armor from the dead made me cringe. The idea of possibly killing again stopped my heart. And friends? I'd had no luck with that as a foal in the stable. What chance did I have in a world where saving a pony from raiders and slavery didn't get you a friendship welcoming mat? If this is what I needed to do to survive, I wasn't sure I was up to the task. What do you mean by guidance? The bobbing Spritebot was silent a moment.
I'm gonna take a shot in the dark here and guess that you like books. Am I right?
Well, yes,
There's a great book for people traveling through the Equestrian wasteland. I'm pretty sure there's a copy in the Ponyville library. Give me just a second. Okay, I've set the tag for it to your pet book.
My eyes widened in alarm. The Ponyville library. You mean that place I just barely escaped from? The town full of sick psycho ponies? Are you trying to get me killed?
Look, you've got to trust somebody.
The memory of Monterey Jack surfaced in my mind. Why should I trust you? I've never even met you. You're hiding behind a robot radio.
Oh, I don't know. How about the me saving your life part? If I was trying to kill you, why would I have done that?
The voice watcher had a point. Before I could say anything to that effect, however, the Spritebot burped static and began playing music again. The music featured multiple harmonicas and trombones. It flew lazily away, as if it didn't care that I was there. The Ponyville library was in a tree. Not a treehouse, but literally inside a tree. A massive, gnarled tree, bigger than most buildings, had been grown in the middle of the town, clearly the project of magic, and hollowed out to be the public library. The south side of the tree was scorched black and dead, but there were still a few leaves clinging to life on the opposite branches. The tree was surrounded by a wide open space with absolutely no cover. Any hope my luck at the Carousel Boutique would hold out here was dashed when I looked up to the highest balcony and finally spotted the sniper pony, an earth pony armed with a powerful-looking rifle. The rifle was attached to the balcony railing with a gliding swivel mount, allowing the raider to aim it wherever she could see. The only safe approach was from directly behind her, where the door to the balcony and the narrow top of the tree beyond blocked her line of sight. There were surely more raider ponies inside. Sneaking up carefully from the only direction that wouldn't mean instant death, I was trembling with nerves by the time I reached the door. As swiftly and silently as I could, I slipped out of Ponyville